Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server for the Dance of Dragons, and this time we're having a look at my pick for the update. This is a vehicle that I'm looking forward to the most, and I know it may seem like a simple choice. Of course, we have the big bangers like the J10, the JF17, the F111F, all of these general vehicles, but for me, the T1E1 is the one I look forward to the most. I'm very much really enjoy World War II vehicles. I've been looking forward to many of them for a long time, and slowly but surely they get added to the game. Stuff like the B-26, for example, was lovely to see, and also many British vehicles like the Churchill Avery. And as time goes on, every update, there is at least one or two World War II vehicles that is still very fun to play. Stuff like the Stug 4 I'm looking forward to, and also many others that will grace us eventually. The T1E1 is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a T1E1 that we've already had in the game before, in the form of this one, but instead of the 76mm main gun, it has access to the 90mm. This is the T7 cannon, so what it gives you is additional penetration, but also losing a few different capabilities. The nice thing about the 76mm is that it has access to a vertical stabilizer, meaning that you're able to get the first shot off in a lot of engagements, and also a very powerful reload rate to go along with it. The 90mm has a longer reload rate, and also loses that stabilizer, but it packs a hell of a lot more punch. Supposedly there are some differences in the armor as well, but on the dev server it seems to be straight copied over. Even if you have a look at the stat cards are slightly different compared to each other. You can see it says 70 here, where it says 69 here, and then 44mm and 41 here. But if you actually check the armor, it's basically the same. So I don't know whether the stat card is wrong, or maybe the model itself is wrong right now. At the end of the day, the armor differences are not going to be huge. You know, it's still going to have the same weak spots as it did previously. You know, like these flaps here are very easy to punch through at the level of 5.7. There's also some holes, you know, down here as well, and also the gun breach too. So you're gonna face the T1E1. If you're facing the T1E1 you shoot it in exactly the same positions, you'll be able to do the same damage. So you don't have to worry about that. One of the other things that the 90mm gets alongside the 76 one is the really good transmission. This is what sets the T1E1 apart from the M6, which is a similar vehicle. The transmission on this thing means that you can go forward and backwards at a really good rate, and I would honestly say one of the things that separates a lot of the really good heavy tanks from the okay heavy tanks is their mobility, not just forward but also backwards. A lot of vehicles like the Soviet heavies have very good reverse gears. Stuff like the T-34, for example, has a much better reverse gear than other ones, and it makes a huge difference when you are peaking and when you are moving around the battlefield to be able to reposition quickly, even in such a behemoth, and that is huge for a vehicle like this. It is a slightly higher BR than the T1E1 at 5.7, and the 5.7 lineup for America did take quite a big hit, with the Hellcats getting pushed up to 6.0, but you still have a pretty decent one. You have the M36B2 that's here, you also have the Jumbo, and of course the 76mm Sherman, so you still have, you know, a decent amount of stuff to run at. The only question is, will you get up-tiered a lot to 6.7, which of course means you face stuff like Tiger 2Hs and IS-244s, which are kind of just better than you. At least you have the 90mm to compensate though. Other armaments on this vehicle, you have a 37mm that is sat here, the M3 cannon, which you will find on the standard T1E1, but also on other lower tier vehicles, and then you have 350 cals. So you have the 50 cal here, plus two dual ones, which are sat here looking forward. These ones have very limited traverse, but the top one, of course, being a pintle mount, it can turn wherever, and is a mainstay for a lot of American vehicles, and makes them a lot better at the anti-air, which definitely is required, since they are still struggling to find an anti-air in this area. So yeah, the vehicle is looking pretty good. The T7 cannon has access to the M77 shot as a standard, which is okay penetrating, but it's an AP shell, so it won't do as much damage. The M82 shot is an APC BC, but it has some HE filler in it, meaning that it will penetrate and explode doing a lot of damage. You can see here also it has more penetration. 185mm is good enough to pretty much go through anything. If you have a look at stuff like the Tiger II-H, for example, which is probably the toughest target you are going to face in this vehicle, the Tiger II-H has a weak spot on the front of it, which is its kind of flat bit here, and it's 185mm. So with the T1E1 cannon, you should be able to punch through it, but it's obviously going to be a little bit tough to do so. Instead, you're going to really have to work hard in order to do it. So looking at the M82 shot, you can see the protection map here. You do have holes, but they're very small. So good luck getting through there. But if you can, you'll blow up the crew and you'll have a great time. So that is going to be a bit tough, but we're also talking about full up tiers here and also facing the things from the front. Anything else around its BR, it's going to be able to nuke pretty efficiently. Also has a HE shell for the 90 if you want to overpressure stuff, but I'm pretty sure, well no, this one might have just a little bit too low HE to be able to overpressure stuff. I think you need a little bit more than that. And then the 37mm, you have the M51B1 APC-BC, which pens up to 90mm, which is nothing to scoff at 5.7. That will deal with a lot of light tanks and also even medium tanks at certain ranges. And then it has a standard M74B1 shell to use stock too. So the nice thing about this vehicle is the fact that both of its good rounds are rank 1. So you can get them super early on, so you don't have to worry about the stock grind too much. And then also the rest of the modifications are all based around your mobility and also your gun too. This is probably the area I would focus on first. Just because of the fact that the gun is going to be so droopy because it's a 90mm. You can see here the horizontal and the vertical guidance speed aren't the best. Like, they're not actually that bad compared to other vehicles around, but you've also got to remember I'm running them in a pretty decent crew, and at the same time, you know, the modifications are all there. It's spaded, right? So that means it'll be a lot better. So at stock, it's going to be a bit rough to get this gun on target, so you're going to have to take engagements a little bit slower than previously. The vehicle has a ton of crew. It actually has 6 people. It has a loader back here, surprisingly, and then also a loader here, that you have the gunner here and also the commander. The commander does not have fire controls, so if you take out the gunner, it won't be able to shoot back. But having that additional crew member back there means that if you get shot on the left-hand side and you hit the machine gunner, gunner, and loader, you can still fill the loader position, the driver, and the gunner at the same time, giving you a slight advantage over the enemy. It is heavy, but it does have 37 kilometers an hour behind it, so you will be able to move around at a decent click. But the reason why this thing is kind of my favorite vehicle of the update is because you can use it for dailies, you can use it for specials, you know, it's high enough rank, and also it's in that mid-tier area where America thrives. You know, it has quite a lot of cast that you can run around with. It has, you know, the 37, which can be a bit of fun with the vehicle too. And also it just has quite a lot to it that will just make it a lot more fun to play than many others. Having more options to be able to fight with always will be positive for vehicles like this. And the 90mm at this BR is something that has never really let me down. And you can see for a heavy tank, it gets up to 20 kilometers an hour super quickly. So what you can do is you can reposition, and then you can stop, angle the gun, and boom. So you can get a really decent kind of weight shot hit, and while you're setting up, you can always fire the 37 to confuse the enemy while you're setting up the big old gun. So that is something to also look at for the vehicle itself. If you've ever played stuff like the M3 Lee, you know how useful that little plinky gun can be, just setting up the enemy and then waiting for, you know, the big 90 to be ready. Since the vehicle is pretty stable with its suspension, even at speed, you can move quite well and still not have any issues in terms of the gun not being too unbalanced. So you can see here we're going at 37. The gun itself is still pretty good, right? Like, you can actually fire it on the move pretty effectively because of that really nice suspension the vehicle has. It is a big target, so, you know, getting hit back will hit pretty hard, but at the same time, look at it. It can move, and even without a stabilizer, the gun is still incredibly stable to use. So that's the advantage of a vehicle like this. The fact that it's a heavy with a big old gun, but also is pretty stable on the move, and at the same time can put out a lot of damage towards the enemy. My feeling is that this will be really fun for people to play, and that's why I'm looking forward to it. You can see here the reverse as well is really where it comes in its own. The only thing that this vehicle is missing is smokes. It doesn't have any smoke grenades, and because of the longer reload on the 90, I wouldn't bother bringing smokes on it. Even though they do have a large plume and they will cover a lot to it, it just is an extra thing that, you know, means that you're not going to be ready for combat when you go into it. So that's the only real small issue with it. It has a good lineup, it has good air support, you know, it has good mobility, the armor is fine for what it is, and the survivability is fine too. People will really enjoy this thing, and I'm personally really looking forward to it. So make sure to mark it down as a vehicle to look for, because you'll have a great time in this against the Germans and against, of course, the Soviets and everybody else that's around this BR. This 90 can pretty much penetrate everything as long as I aim it correctly, which isn't always the case, since sometimes I'm definitely a boomer. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.